Recording number 1. A certain mysterious and ominous anomaly has been discovered by me and my assistant, who is currently replying I hear from the assistant, for which he'll be demoted to a lab rat. Description of the setup. I live on the 12th floor of a 16-story building, and directly across the road with the tram tracks stands a 26-story building, where my lab rat Dennis conducts observation. Go screw yourself! The distance between the buildings according to 2G maps is precisely 156 meters. A little to the side of my entrance, another pair of tram tracks from a tram circle intersects with the tram tracks. And I don't know how normal this is, but trams always spark when they pass this point. There are a lot of trams here. The flashes are short and not very bright, but if you look not at the trams, but at the building, for a split second they are distinctly illuminated in blue. Even those that are further away. The entire facade lights up. Description of the anomaly. I don't know. Seriously, I don't know. But it possesses specific stable properties. For instance, it becomes visible only after dusk, in the lights of the electric flashes from the trams. It looks eerie. Continuing the description of the anomaly. Dennis compared it to a dense cloud of cold dust that doesn't settle. Couldn't capture it with a flash on a camera. Not visible on a phone video, and even with the naked eye, nothing could be seen. Imagine, you are looking at the building across. Everything around briefly flickers in blue like from micro lightning or a weak strobe light. And at that moment, it becomes apparent that something is resembling a dark, semi-transparent veil without a distinct outlines is swaying around the roof and upper floors. Not very noticeable unless you know what to look for. The thing envelops the top of the buildings with a layer about 5 meters thick and doesn't disperse in strong winds. So it's not smoke from the homeless people burning the rubber on the roof. Actually, whether the veil sways or not is unknown, as the sparks are too short. But this is absolutely not an optical illusion. We both saw it from my balcony and from the ground. An obvious experiment would be to find a welding machine or another way to sustain an electric arc from an extended period. I am just afraid that my dad won't approve such experiments. It's crucial to time it when it's dark enough, for the buildings to be illuminated by the dischargers, but the sky is still bright enough for the shimmer to be noticeable. Sometimes, when a couple trams pass by, the flash becomes doubled, so yes, the anomaly sways. Judging by it, or at least it moves. It's hard to say precisely. Dan and I pulled money for binoculars. On the down low from my dad, I scrutinized the shimmer trying to make out details, but the magnification is so-so. Nothing particularly interesting in the windows for now, but I haven't lost hope. Dan tries to observe from his balcony, giving me reports over the radio, but there is hardly any observations. His windows face me, and the main part of the thing seems to have gathered on the far side of the building. It's as though it spreads out over it, but there is almost no lighting there. So looking from the ground is futile. Maybe it doesn't like electricity, or doesn't like being seen? Dad caught me with the binoculars and scolded me. Took them away. I didn't argue. Said I was checking out the naked woman in the windows. First, I wouldn't mind. Second, the trickiest question: how and to whom to talk about this without ending up in Katyanko's ward. That is definitely out of the question, and so are Dan's parents. Is there a resident in their building crazy enough to listen to us? And what's the point? There might be a reasonable explanation for this thing. After all, we are not in a zone. This crap is growing. It releases shoots of its voluminous dark weirdness. The shoots crawl along the seams of the concrete slabs, forming polyps of undefined shapes. They swell and engulf the floors, from 26th down to 18th. It's not gaseous, it's material, just almost invisible. It resembles something. It's like someone is slowly devouring the building. According to Dan, the apartment and the stairwell now smell of damp rags and sewage. Everyone can smell it. Now it looks like a shadow of a giant insect curling around the building. Centipede comes to mind, but they only share an abhorrent nature, in common with the insect. In general, there is only the complete inhumanity of the entity. Is it a creature? Or an element force? Or what? That's how I see it. There are no analogs, no precise form for it. There is only an emotional perception, an experience from gazing at the flickering structure, illuminated by the blue flashes, that has encased the immense building. To describe this experience, the brain offers association it possesses: melancholy, dead animals in dry grass, inevitability, dusty desert under scorching skies, hopelessness without escape, decay and refuse at the bottom of dirty pit. Mom. Other words that come to mind are psychiatry and hallucinations. But I am far from disbelieving my own eyes. And yes, I'm not alone in this. Dennis is panicking and willing to talk to the parents. The goal is to convince them and move temporarily. He understands that it's a futile attempt, but it crawled out from behind the building and doesn't look safe anymore. It looks repulsive and very mournful, like the utterly inevitable end of something alive. That's how my mom looked in her last days at the hospital. If death, in its abstract sense, were to manifest, it would appear not as a grim reaper, but precisely like this. Embodied entropy. I no longer want to meet with Dennis, or even greet him. What if it's somehow contagious? A handshake leaves an unpleasant sticky sensation on the fingers. It is as though he's not here anymore. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I've stopped going out to the balcony in the evenings. I don't want to look anymore. When I gaze at it, I feel like crying. I wrote the notes above on pages from a notepad. I have a habit of writing by hand. This stack of pages, I didn't transfer all the notes here. The rest are just the same, but in places. They contain a lot of personal stuff. I found them in my desk drawer last week while looking for spare pencil leads. I don't remember putting them there, and I don't remember writing them. I was very scared. Terrified, actually. My handwriting, my sheets, my very real schizophrenia. Maybe it's due to my mother's death last year. Although, I thought I had endured everything that came with it. My mom started to appear more and more in notes closer to the end, and there were also traces of water on the paper, resembling tears. I recently watched a film about John Nash, the mad mathematician, and I desperately didn't want to become like that. Dad remembers taking in binoculars and giving me a scolding, but not Dennis. What's worse, I don't remember Dennis. I don't have such a classmate, and I don't know for sure if he was my classmate according to the written nonsense. I couldn't even describe him because all the information I have about him is in these notes. And if that's not enough, opposite our house, opposite my balcony, across the road, there is nothing. There were never 26-story building, just an empty lot where locals, including my dad, park their cars at night. Behind the empty lot, begins a long boulevard, probably, or a narrow park with pathways. You can see quite far from the balcony, beautiful sunsets, and no houses where my imaginary friend and classmate Dennis would live. But these sheets I'm holding are written in my handwriting. Going out to the balcony in the evenings, and trams really do run here until late. I never paid much attention. I waited for the blue flashes and looked around lying on my stomach on the windowsill. Not a hint. No anomaly. Absolutely nothing. And I spent a whole terrifying day in my room, sitting on the bed, clenching my temples until the pain surged and darkness filled my eyes, preparing to approach my dad with the words, "I think I've gone mad," and handing him the crumpled sheets. But that's why I didn't do it. Firstly, measuring 156 meters of the maps from my house, I accidentally extended the line much further than needed. It didn't hit anything. I checked all the mapping services, but everywhere... Let's put it this way. We live in the southwest of the city, not too far from the center. There is a dense development everywhere, but throughout the city to the north of our house, there is something that's most likely a thoroughfare. Parks, vacant lots, no structures larger than a garage, along the entry length of 20 kilometers, maybe more. A straight line without houses can go far north if you have enough imagination to picture it. Very far. Let's say beyond the Arctic Circle. I intend to check. Maybe I can even calculate the speed of movement of this creature. Maybe I can convince my dad. Secondly, regarding the sheets I came across, a mention of a radio. I never had a radio, but assuming I have a good friend who lives nearby, I'd give a kidney for a radio to always stay connected. I found a radio in the same desk drawer, tucked slightly deeper. A cheap, single-channeled walkie-talkie. Plastic toy, but at a distance of 156 meters. It should work flawlessly, I think. Today, when it got dark, I turned on the radio, sat on the balcony, and started listening to the airwaves. I didn't wait for long. These sounds, they're only audible when the tram passes the switch and the contact wire sparks. Short fragment of sounds, no individual words or syllables. I was about to think I wouldn't be able to identify them when it hit me. It's human. Crying. Sobs. Quietly weeping, but not wailing. No. Only an endlessly grieving person sounds like that, no matter where they are right now. Absolute sorrow. Hopelessness. Without escape. Tears welled up in my eyes, and a strangely familiar dull pain squeezed my heart. Mom came to mind. My hands dropped. The radio rolled onto the carpet. Forgive me, Dennis. And also, the apartment began to smell unpleasant, like a sink that's been clogged for a long time.